If you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, like you're excited about this season. And it's funny, I actually went to a Jacksonville Jaguars game. You're not going to want to know which one I went to. It was against the Lions. And there's a lot to be excited about in Jacksonville. And there's a player that is a sleeping giant, an absolute monster, and could be a top 10 player at his position that not enough people are talking about because he's been out of the game for a little bit. We're going to talk about that. But if you're new to this channel, this isn't our first channel. As you can see behind me, I have the Sports Talk Detroit poster. We have another channel. But what we wanted to do is give love to other teams that are kind of in that same market where it's maybe not a big or it's a smaller market. So the national media doesn't pay a lot of attention. And we just want to give some love to that. So if you're about that, please feel free to hit that subscribe button. But let's talk about the Jags and who they have and what they have going on. And I'm going to give you a couple really compelling things in case you forget just what this guy is. And it's Calvin Ridley. And he shows no signs of rust during offseason practice. That's great. I'm fine with that. Why would he show rust? Because he had to sit out for a year. Remember, this guy had the gambling on games and all that kind of stuff. Here's what I think we need to understand about Ridley. He is a shockingly talented wide receiver out of Alabama. Played for 4 years with the Falcons before the suspension came in. This isn't a guy where you're like, oh, he got suspended, he didn't play for a year, he doesn't work hard. Dude works hard. In fact, Coach Peterson, and it says right in this article, spoke briefly about wide receiver Calvin Ridley sitting out a few reps during last week's practice. The wide receivers in the rookie class. Peterson stated Ridley was the type of guy you have to pump the brakes with because he wants to go so hard during practice. And the team's trying to be careful with him coming off an injury. He just wants to go, go, go. He is a hard worker. I think he's thankful for another opportunity to be playing in the league. And you're adding him to a wide receiver core that was good, but definitely not great last year. I think it was better than some people thought it would be, but not just ridiculous. So here's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to look at what that wide receiver room looks like now. And we're also going to look at the stats of how good, in case you wonder, how good Ridley was. So let's start with those stats. Let's look at what Calvin Ridley has done in his career. And what you can see is he came into the league in 2018, and his rookie year, he was able to get 64 catches for 821 yards and 10 touchdowns. Year two, another very similar year. Same amount of catches, same amount of targets, almost exactly. Turned it into a few more yards and a few less touchdowns. But 2020, his last full season. His last full season, he had 15 games played, 90 catches, almost 1,400 yards with 15-yard average per reception with 9 touchdowns. That is phenomenal. That is really good. And part of that's because Julio Jones was on and off hurt. And I remember this year very well because Calvin Ridley was on my fantasy football team that year. It was really, really nice having him. It wasn't nice keeping him the next year only to see him get suspended 5 games into the season. That wasn't fun. So when you sit here and you hear things of after not playing for a year and a half, no signs of rust, all you can say to yourself is, let's go. Like, you have to be pumped as a Jaguars fan. And he is added into a room that is absolutely now stacked at wide receiver. And you can make the argument, if you want, that Jacksonville now has one of the most dangerous receiving cores or the most weapons of anybody in football. I'm not saying that they have the best, but Christian Kirk last year, are you kidding me with this guy? Christian Kirk played really, really well. All right, here he is. Like, we get to see him. We got ads coming up like crazy. All right, he's a good player, and we know this about Christian Kirk. Dude can absolutely ball. He came from Arizona, and everybody's thinking like, oh man, we overpaid Christian Kirk. No, you did not. He had a year. Nobody thought he could be a number 1 wide receiver. They always thought he would be a great number 2 receiver. Well, it turns out, yeah, he is a great number 2 receiver, but also can do the number 1 duties. Calvin Ridley is a very similar receiver to Christian Kirk. Neither of them are overly huge. Both of them run good routes. Both of them have good speed. Both of them can make people miss. Both of them know how to get open when they're running their routes. When you combine that with someone like Zay Jones, who is a good outside receiver, you can put Kirk in the slot, Ridley on the outside. You have 2-3 guys now that can take the top off the offense. Now, I understand there's the whole weird thing with Evan Ingram. He's not showing up and stuff like that. But with Evan Ingram in the mix, all of a sudden you have to say to yourself, Trevor Lawrence, look out. Look out. And this is exactly why Trevor Lawrence is going to be my kind of sleeper. Like if you want a quarterback in fantasy football, especially if you're doing a dynasty league, Trevor Lawrence would be a great pick this year, because if he was able to put up the numbers that he put up last year, except now you get to add Calvin Ridley to that mix, you are in some good company. Everybody thought last year that they paid too much to Christian Kirk. They thought they overpaid Zay Jones. Evan Ingram was never successful anywhere he was. And all the three did last year was straight up produce. It was fun to watch. Like, I enjoy watching the Jaguars. And coming from a guy who watches a lot of football in general, but a lot of Lions football, to watch them take a very similar path as the Lions did, I have to admit there was a little bit of jealousy. I've always liked the Jags from the moment they entered the league in the 90s. Mark Brunell, everybody loves that, with Jimmy Smith, Fred Taylor. Like, that was so much fun watching the 90s iteration. Keenan McCardell of the Jacksonville Jaguars. They couldn't get over the hump, but it was so much fun watching them. And so always been a fan, but to see what happened with this team after getting over the Urban Meyer. Oh, I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that. I'm so sorry. But getting over the Urban Meyer thing, and then Peterson showing that he is a good coach, and halfway through the year, this team just flipped the switch, turned it on, wins a playoff game, and now they're adding even more talent on this offensive side of the football. I'm saying, if you think Trevor Lawrence is the guy, which I absolutely think he is going to be a top 10 player at quarterback for as long as he's in the league, with the ability to be a top 5 for sure. If you think he's the guy, he has weapons. He has the weapons to get it done right now. So it's an exciting time to be a Jaguars fan. We're not going to talk about the secondary right now. I don't want to rain on your parade, because that's what we like to do here at Sports Talk Extra. We like to take the positive vibe. We like to have the fun spin on things. So if you are a Jags fan, be excited about this year. Be excited about Calvin Ridley. There are not a lot of almost 1,400 yard guys out there. Not a lot of people do that in a season. You don't get 90 catches, 1,400 yards, and then in 3 seasons to get yourself, 9, 7, and 10, 26 touchdowns in 3 years. That's not by fluke. That's because you have talent. You have absolute talent. Him and Christian Kirk on the same team is going to cause problems for defenses. You should be really excited if you're a Jags fan. I think I've said that before. Hey, like I said, we love the small market teams here. We're trying to show love to those teams. If you like what we're doing here, hit that subscribe button. This isn't our first channel, but we're trying to make this a more regular thing. This will be a channel. Leave a comment below. Let us know how you're liking the videos, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one.